And we're live. Sorry, everybody. Took me a little while to get set up. Everything was a little cattywampus, as my dad would say. Hey, Jacob. Hey, Richard. How are you? I was going to ask where everybody was from. I think I did definitely remember you were from Toronto. But if everybody could drop in where they're from or near there, I know some people are a little hesitant to say where they are. I am in outside of Houston, Texas, which of course that's why I'm following the Bayou City Butcher case. And I did not come up with that name, so I don't want to take the credit, but I don't know who did. Somebody wrote that in something local, not like a newspaper writer, but somebody else. Jacob from Ohio. Cool. What part? I think about Ohio, of course, because Ted Braden is from Toledo, Ohio. So that's when I think of Ohio, I immediately go to Ted Braden in Toledo. Just automatically. Braden being from Toledo. Actually, there's another DB Cooper suspect is originally from Ohio, which is there's trivia for any of you people that know the case. What other DB Cooper suspect is from Ohio other than Ted Braden originally? Oh, near Dayton. Cool. I've never been to Ohio. I'm overdue, I guess. I used to work for Roger Staubach, who's from, I think he's from Cincy. Roger the Dodger is originally from Cincinnati before he goes into the Naval Academy, and then obviously before he's the quarterback for the Cowboys, and then has a far more lucrative career in commercial real estate than he ever did at football. Because back then those guys just didn't make the money. Even a guy like him, who was at the top of his game, 2 Super Bowls, never made some massive fortune. And there's a lot of good. I used to have one theory about somebody that may have been helping him, and I kind of backed off of that a little bit. I never publicized, it was just kind of a side theory thing that I didn't push too hard, thankfully, because I found out that the gentleman that he was in SOG with actually lived in Vancouver, Washington. But I think it was later determined that gentleman didn't make it to Vancouver until good many years after the hijacking. Don't come to Ohio. It sucks. Huh? Have not been there. I've been to Pennsylvania. I have not been to Ohio. Cleveland or Cincy or Dayton or Toledo, of course. RMI Titanium is in Niles, Ohio. And Braden did live in Niles, Ohio before the jump, which is interesting because RMI Titanium is a home of what they call the Hunter process of how they made their titanium there. And that company was I think one of the biggest employers, probably the biggest employer in the Niles area, which isn't a big town in Ohio, but it's typical Ohio town. But I think that was probably like the giant employer for the area was RMI Metals. And then the names kind of changed over the years and they got bought out. But Braden was living in that area before the jump where they're making Hunter processed titanium. And of course, they found some titanium on Cooper's tie, which was definitely had the CIA connections. I mean, he had those big league. And what Jim Hetrick kind of leaked to me was that Ted knew far more than what the CIA was doing just in Southeast Asia. He told me that Braden knew what the CIA was doing globally. So he had far more knowledge than just what they were doing in Vietnam. Of course, our own CIA was running heroin in Laos because they had a agreement with whoever the Laotian leader was at the time. And they were trying to get, the guys were going over the fence and doing work. Otis was near Columbus? When did your dad work for Otis? I've used Otis a lot, of course, in my line of work. But now it's all changed, and a guy explained it to me. Otis and Schindler are the 2 big dogs in elevators. And, man, that's a complaint you hear everywhere now. Any commercial use elevators it's a hot mess. I mean, they break every 5 minutes. The only thing worse than an elevator in a commercial building is an outside escalator. I had 2 of them, two different owners. One of them, my current one, family, but no, sorry. That's another one. We don't have an escalator where I am now. We do have plenty of elevators, which Schindler has some contracts on, and the warranties are a joke. Elevator warranties are a complete joke. I mean, you might get one that covers the parts, but as you know, working on elevators is all labor intensive, and none of the warranties that I've ever seen cover labor. And labor on escalators, it's like $900 an hour or something insane. But I used to have two different places I had outdoor escalators, which meant they were suspect to the elements: water, rain, cold, heat. And that is a bad combo. I mean, those things would break every 10 seconds. Some kid gets caught in the track or whatever. No one ever really got hurt, but complete insanity. But a guy was explaining to me that I know that went into the independent business of working on elevators and elevator maintenance. And he used to be the head of, in Houston, of the repair team for Otis, the Otis office here in Houston area. And something bad happened where they all kind of just went on their own. It was just got so bad between those, but all the major elevator owners. So they're usually weeks behind on repairs. So I have them where I think when they're new, you have to stick with them for a while, and then you can get an independent person, which is much better. An independent guy will come out that day, usually. If worst case is the next day. Yeah, we need to do some more on Yuba. Yuba's one that needs, I don't know. I have my Yuba group, which is nice. But, man, I've been through Yuba so much. I was thinking about Yuba yesterday, just on my own. I wasn't talking to Tony or Anthony or anything like that. But, just running through all the scenarios in my head. Of course, one thing about it is, like, you can't totally rule out Gary freaking out on the ride back from Bears Market. It's just unlikely, but it's not impossible. Like, that's one of the things with all these cases. Like, Gary acting up, it was just something he wasn't doing at the time. He was pretty steady on his meds. I know his sister. It's just something that he wasn't really doing at the time. But that being said, it's not impossible. I remember the one psychic lady we had on Noreen's show, and Patty, I know you remember that. And her theory was, and she had hit on a couple things before that non-Yuba County 5 related, but she believed that this was Gary after they left Bears Market, started having an episode or whatever, and that somehow leads them up into the Plumas, but even if Gary was having an episode, I don't know how that gets you up to the Plumas. I just don't see it. And if everything was there, let's just say the boys were scared. The boys were scared of Gary. I say that even at the behest of, I know somebody hates it when I do that, but it's true. The boys were afraid of Gary. He was part of the group. They were afraid of the guy. You have to be real to the story. They were, okay? They were. But anyway, let's just say the boys are just basically, they're afraid of Gary, so they're taking his commands. And Gary's just having a schizophrenic episode, and he says, take a right, take a left, go through the bridge through Chico, go all the way up in the Plumas or whatever. Still really doesn't explain why Doc leaves his window down. Something happened very fast, and it's got to be more than just Gary threatening them all, because the rest of the four were good sized guys. I mean, even Jackie had, and there's that one photo of Jackie Hewitt where he had some guns, man. I mean, these dudes were very athletic. They were into girls, they were, cognitively behind, but physically they were men. And I just don't see it playing out that way. If Gary has this, Serenity Jenny, he's just so good. Not to be confused with Cogitating Jen, by the way. Where is Cogitating Jen? But I just don't see it playing out that way. I think if Gary starts flaring up, let's just use that, so to speak. First of all, there was no reports of Gary at the game having any issues. Of course, people did notice the boys, particularly the writer for the local newspaper in Chico, recalled seeing them all together, and they looked different, when they were all together. And people assumed Gary was just like the rest of them because he was wearing his glasses that night, even though he had started wearing contacts. But he was wearing glasses the night of the basketball game in Chico on the Friday night. But let's just say Gary does have an episode. It's probably not going to play out that way to wind up in the Plumas. It just doesn't, if Gary flares up, he walks home or threatens the guys and eventually gets home or something else. It's just really, really out of the realm that Gary's going to flare up to the point of winding up that far off course. Even if the boys are scared of him, how does that play out? It's really strange. And somebody pointed out to me once too, just thinking back about you, but if Gary was at the trailer that long, there absolutely would have been more sea rations consumed than there were. And because he wouldn't have been, Gary, of course, wouldn't have thought it was stealing. And I think, what was it, 30 or so sea rations? If Tony, if you're on, correct me. That's what Tony, I love Tony's always, that's the great thing about just really honing in on that one case. That's what I love about Tony, because he knows Yuba so well, and he can bam, bam, bam on the facts, which is great. But Tony would agree with me that we just have always leaned against Gary. But yeah, if Gary's involved, it's still 4 versus 1, and we're talking about 4 good sized guys. And I was reminded of that when I had lunch with Dallas Weir Jr., of course, that's Ted's nephew, and he's a big guy like his father and his other uncle. And his Uncle Ted, they're big guys. I mean, the Weirs are big boys. I mean, hey, Greg, they're just big guys. And Dallas is a big guy. I mean, he's a lovable teddy bear like Ted was. I mean, Dallas is a great guy. I love Dallas Weir Jr., man. I'm not going to lie to you. His dad is, of course, Dallas Sr., one of Ted's brother. And Perry is the other brother. So there you've got, there was 3 boys, and I think, and a girl in the family. And Dallas, of course, was Ted's nephew, but Dallas knew the Yuba City area well. He goes to San Antonio, of course, meets his wife at Bible College. They go back to the Yuba City area for maybe a decade, and then relocate back to around Dallas, Texas. And, just seeing how, a good sized guy Dallas was, and knowing he was big like Ted. Ted was big, Dallas is big, Perry's big. They're just good sized guys, and, man, 2 of them alone could have handled Gary. It wouldn't have been a problem. I mean, Gary was crazy, but those guys were athletic and strong. I mean, they could have contained him pretty easily, in my opinion. No doubt about it. Hey, Lee. Of course, every time I see Lee, I think of Lee Allen, and then the fact that sometimes he would go by Lee, L-E-E, Lee. Of course, that his real name was Leigh, but on his name tag at Ace Hardware, he did wear Lee. So they didn't even, I guess maybe they ran out of letters, or they just called him Lee, so it wasn't a big deal. But his name tag at Ace Hardware on Tennessee Street, Vallejo, was Lee, Lee, even though that's not the spelling was Leigh, like Lee. It's hard for it to be more dangerous than it already is in Houston. Houston is dangerous. It is. I mean, I've spent a good amount of time in Memphis, Tennessee, and Memphis, Tennessee has always been known as a violent city. I'd say Houston is worse. I mean, even the good parts are worse. I'm as a native Houstonian, I'm sorry, Houston's violent. It's violent. It's just violent. I went to the locksmith a week ago, and there's this guy just walking down the streets. Long Point, if you don't know Houston at all, and Long Point's a little sketchy as it is, but anyway, the guy's just screaming, walking down the street. Ah! Maybe he was the Bayou City Butcher, but he was just. It's just. I mean, I know I get the mental illness and the meth, and usually when you're on meth, you do that. What do they call it? Meth sleep or something, where you're on enough. Not meth. Shoot, not meth. What am I thinking of? God, the pain stuff. God, my memory's been wiped out ever since the last round of COVID. Fentanyl sleep. Something about what they do on fentanyl, because when you're on fentanyl, you're kind of this guy was going just screaming at the top of his lungs. I mean, I don't know what his issue was, but it was just like, welcome to Houston, man. That's every day. The homeless have gotten violent here. I mean, they'll literally, like, one came up, they used to come to your car and they'd have like a sign, like, can a cracker get $1, whatever the hell. And they had their little cardboard signs, but one of them like literally slapped it on my truck window, like wanting money, like slapped the sign on my window. Usually they wouldn't touch your vehicle ever. I mean, they might get in front and say, point their sign and do this, but this guy literally slapped it on my window. And I'm like, bro, you're about to catch some lead, my friend. You do that one more time, and you're going to have a lead sandwich. I'm sorry. It's Houston. Don't touch my vehicle. Don't touch me. Don't touch my vehicle. And he literally plastered that sign by my window. It spooked me. And I'm be like, you're about to catch a few, bro. Don't do it. But, man, the city has gotten uber violent. It just has. I'm sorry. Even Westheimer Road in Houston, and parts that weren't from where I went to high school, there used to be like no one ever thought twice about safety wise. Or now you're thinking, damn, like what? Let's be careful of this guy. It's gotten bad, and we got a new mayor who came in, and this is what's bad about our new mayor. Of course, John Whitmire. He comes in running on an anti-crime campaign. He ran on the crime being bad in Houston, and the crime has only gotten tenfold worse since he's become mayor. And I know there's a lot of criticism against the old mayor, who I knew personally pretty well. He was at least a nice guy, but and I'm sure I know he had his issues. He did, but but at least it was steady. But Whitmire comes in, to win the mayorship of Houston on this issue, because he himself had been a crime victim with his family. They got held up. I don't know the details, with guns, and I think they were robbed. Nobody, got hurt seriously, thank God. But Whitmire comes in. Forget Democrat, Republican, all that nonsense. It doesn't even really matter at a city level. It doesn't. It's nonsense. It's really nonsense on every level. It's kind of like George Carlin said. It's all the same. They're in a club and you ain't in it. All right. So forget all that. But Whitmire runs on crime. And wins. And it's gotten 10 times worse since he's been mayor, in my opinion. Terrible. It's, homelessness in Houston is like the Bay Area. They're on every corner now. They pushed them off of the freeway. They had this big plan for the homeless, and all they did was push them off of the freeways into suburbia, or places like the Galleria, which is, a shopping mall in Houston, but we call the area the Galleria. My company owns a bunch of retail centers around these areas, and they are violent. Just crazy acting people, theft, rampant theft. The driving is insanity. And now they have some kind of deal where it's some kind of, we're going to be watching the driving and pulling over people at random with some driving nonsense. I'm like, you got way bigger problems than that. And now, you're segueing into the Bayou City Butcher. Even a guy like Tony Busby, if you know who that is. Tony Busby is a very famous defense attorney here in Houston. And has done really well. He lives in River Oaks. He had a tank in his, famously had a full-blown a World War II tank in his front yard, and the neighbors really didn't like it much, so Tony eventually gets rid of it. But Tony's done really well, and I follow Tony on Instagram, and he's he's being very careful. He's a defense attorney and a smart one. He's got all the money in the world. He's has a fairly new wife. I think she's connected to the Stewarts from Galveston. I'm not sure about that. But Tony, if you're listening, it'd be awesome. Weigh in if you are. But anyway, Tony is a smart guy, very successful defense attorney. Obviously he runs in the annals of crime, and he's in Houston, even though I know he owns a big ranch somewhere up north where he spends a lot of time. But anyway, Tony, I could tell, was leaning towards the Bayou City Butcher being a serial killer. He was just choosing his words very carefully. But he just said, imagine a scenario where that you have a target, and the target's going to be in the area of one of the bayous, and you can hold them under the water. He was suggesting, that he was drowning these victims. And that's why you're not finding any obvious signs of foul play on the Bayou City victims that have been turning up in the bayous of Houston, which I'll pull up some of the slides, show some better information. But Tony Busby was suggesting that they're being drowned. And that's a big deal, because Tony's a smart guy, has nothing to gain or lose by going there. And, of course, all the city government saying, no serial killer here, including Mayor Whitmire, who ran on crime. The city's rot with crime right now. Trust me, it's rot with crime. I go into Houston every day of the week. It is rot with crime. Crime is everywhere. But Tony was basically suggesting, this is a clean way to kill people, because the DNA is going to be very degraded because it's been submerged in water. There's no obvious bullet holes, bullet wounds. He was just suggesting this is a smart way to dispatch people, if that's the way you want to do it. And if he's physically the killer, if there is a serial killer, and he was very careful to choose his words, saying if and things like that. I'm not going to say if. I'm going to say we damn well have a serial killer in Houston. I'm all in. I'm all in. There is a serial killer in Houston, Texas, and he's finding his victims somehow, and he's getting close to them somehow, and he's drowning them in the bayous, because It's just the numbers are not lying. The numbers are higher and higher. I don't know if this is the guy that was drowning people in Lady Bird Lake in Austin, because there's a Lake LBJ. You think of Lady Bird, it gets a little confusing, but there was Lady Bird Lake, which I don't even know if it's attached to LBJ Lake. I know Austin a little bit. I went to summer camp there. But anyway, no idea if this is connected to the Austin, Texas drownings that happened at Lady Bird Lake, but they're similar. But we do know there's been male and female victims in the Bayou City cases. And, the Zodiac killer had male and female victims. But let's go to the slides. I'd never heard. Former detective. This isn't Tony. Tony was an attorney. Busby. If you want to look up Tony Busby on Instagram, he has a video on there where he gives his thoughts on it, which are great because Tony's one smart cookie. Let me pull it up so I can read it because I'm blind as a bat. Former detective says string of Houston deaths may be linked to an alleged smiley face killer. There's the word smiley face coming in again. We talked about that a little bit last week. City leaders are downplaying speculation about a potential serial killer, but retired New York Police Detective Sergeant Kevin Gannon, who has long espoused the theory that a group known as the Smiley Face Killers is responsible for hundreds of suspicious drowning deaths around the U.S. That kind of backs up Tony. Says he believes that deaths may be connected. We've never seen drowning numbers like this before, especially with drowning occurring every other day in the same location, he told Fox News Digital. I don't know if it's smiley face killer, but it is a singular person, in my opinion, that are doing these drowning killings, whatever. And they're being very, I guess, tight on the details of the victims. I know one was a African-American female that went to the University of Houston, was one of the victims. But I know there have been male and female victims. I don't know if they're all African-American or if there's any other Caucasian. I don't know. I'm going to get some footage, hopefully tomorrow, of some of the sites of where the bodies have been found, because I know them well. Some are near the University of Houston downtown. Some are a little further out. The last one, I think, was in White Oak Bayou, which, if y'all know where the Heights is in Houston, the north side of I-10 near Taylor Street, I believe, is real close to where they found. They may have even found one after that. I mean, honestly, even living here, it's hard to keep up with how many bodies they are finding in the water in Houston. It is insane. They're turning up everywhere. I mean, I don't know. It could be. The only thing I ever saw in Smiley Face that had any traction for real, and my friend Steve Stockton knows a Smiley Face a lot better than I do. I don't even know if I've ever done a whole show on the Smiley Face because I don't know. I never really bought into the whole thing, but I think some suspicious deaths were going on where you could drown them, and it's just a clean way to get away with things in the age of DNA and forensics. I think drowning is a good way of covering your tracks, is what I'm saying. But I'm not a giant smiley face guy. I'm not. I really am not. I think the only thing that I ever saw that it looked kind of maybe a foothold at all on smiley face was a case in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and I think a guy was at a bar and he was being followed in a car and they were trying to abduct him, and I don't even remember how it tied into smiley face, to be honest, but it was kind of an intriguing story, but not enough to be a believer in the smiley face where they would. But I will say this: there has been no smiley faces, to my knowledge, that have been located anywhere near where these bodies were drowned in the Houston bayous. Nobody's spray painted. Of course, anybody could do that here with all the graffiti. Good Lord, anybody could go out with a spray paint can and spray in a smiley face and start claiming these are smiley face cases, but I'm not, but I do agree with them that I think this is a singular perpetrator, not so much smiley face, but a singular perpetrator. Houston Mayor John Whitmire, the great John Whitmire, recall him now, called the deaths alarming, but said that drownings in the city's 2,500 miles of bayous are not a new phenomenon. And they're not, but they are a new phenomenon in these numbers, Mayor. He urged patience as police investigate and suggested drug and alcohol abuse among the homeless could be a factor. Well, yeah, the homelessness is a huge factor because of you, and you've done nothing about it. Absolutely nothing. All you did was push them off the freeways into the neighborhoods. Thank you for that, Mayor. Unfortunately, the homeless, when they pass, often end up in the bayous. He said, well, why are they drowning? Suggests that Some are thrown in by others living on the streets. Nonsense. I just nonsense. Retired New York Police Department Joseph Giacalone, hopefully I'm getting your name right, Sergeant, a criminal justice professor at Penn State, Lehigh Valley, and a skeptic of the smiley theory. So there you go, a skeptic of the smiley theory, said the mayor's remarks were premature. This guy's actually smart. You have 16 bodies. You just can't say everybody's dying and getting thrown into the river and everybody's homeless. He told Fox News Digital. This guy's got it together. You don't even know if they're from your town. Each case, he said, should be individually investigated. You need an individual autopsy and full toxicology on each of these bodies, he continued. Forensic pathologists can also determine whether the victims were dead before they went into the water. That's kind of like the case of Riley Strain in Nashville. Or they drowned, he said. There's a picture of Sims Bayou Greenway near the Houston Botanical Gardens in Glenbrook Park. I know vaguely where that is. Even being from here, I'm not exactly sure. But the Go Nittling Lions, that's actually a good statement. So he's anti Smiley, like I am too, but he is pro this could be the same guy. Let me go back to this one. But anyway, let me see if I can share a map where, let me go to Google Earth. I'm kind of being like a YouTuber I don't even like by doing the maps, but don't like it at all, but I won't say who it is. But I wanted to give kind of a people that aren't from here a little taste of kind of where the bayous are and where they're running and where they are. But there's been way too many bodies. I mean, I don't want to wish anything bad on anybody, but the odds of them finding another body in the bayous of Houston this week, let's just say today's Sunday, okay? The next 5 days are, I'd say, 100% that you're going to find. They're going to find another body. This last one was just seen by somebody walking by the bayou. You know, they saw the body just laying there. So of course they called police and it looked like they were like trying to drag the body out with sticks or something. And some of them didn't even look like the real police. It was kind of strange. The one picture I saw of them trying to get, pull the last body out of White Oak Bayou towards the, it's concrete, because it's usually concrete along these edges, but, it's kind of a strange photo, but yeah, I don't think it's smiley face, but I do think this is a serial killer. Being in agreement with the Penn State guy. Let me see if this comes up so bad at Google Earth. Okay. Hey, I'm coming in now. Oh, then I can get me back out. Okay, where are we? This was near 45. You got a little the water. You got to get in closer to find the water. There's one of the bayous goes. Okay, here's one of the bayous at Allen's Landing Park. I think one was found near here. There's Buffalo Bayou winding through, so let me share that. Let me take this slide down. Okay, I'm getting rusty. Yeah, something doesn't make sense. There's just way too many. Share screen. Google Earth. Share. Okay. This is downtown Houston right here. There's White Oak Bayou. One of them was found in White Oak Bayou. And I'll meandering through here. This is University of Houston downtown campus and the north part of downtown. Your lower left is the actual, you can see there's all the skies downtown Houston. So that's how close they are. That's where these bodies are being dumped. Like it's Highway 59, sometimes labeled as 69, but it's actually 59 here. Here you got White Oak Bayou coming up by University of Houston downtown, up in I-10. White. See right here is the water, and I'm moving along where the water is, and then you're getting in right at 45. Right here it says Hog Park, and then you're still got White Oak Bayou coming here under I-45 north. That's, of course, will take you to Dallas if you're coming out of downtown Houston. The body, I think that might be Taylor Street right there, this road right here. And the body was somewhere around here. The last one found, I mean, right in the middle. I'll put it right in the middle of the screen. That's here on the side. These are concrete. That's why the guys were standing on concrete trying to get the body fortified with the concrete on the sides of White Oak Bayou. But that's about where they found that body. Another one was a little further away. I think one was found. Sorry, lost the feed. Let me pull that back up. I don't know what happened to my feed. Now I want to pull it back up because I lost my slides. But can you hear me? Where are you going, Jacob, if you're not already gone? I don't know where I lost everybody, but I'm going to bring this back up. Stupid internet. I need to do what my friend did and did this dedicated Ethernet line going out of his window. Like, I don't know, it's like going along his neighbor's yard. Hey, Anthony. We need to do it. Is it heraldry? Am I saying that right, Anthony? We need to do a show on that because obviously that's a topic near and dear to my heart. I love anything coat of arms, especially the coat of arms that individual knights wore into battle. Since I am descendant of English knights, that's how you can probably tell if you see my post I put up. I am directly descended of many English knights. So that's my proud British. Oh, good. I pronounced it correctly. See, even Anthony said I pronounced it correctly, and he knows a lot about it. I'm trying to learn more about it. Yes, Patty even says that would be interesting. We should do that because I love coats of arms and particularly what a knight would choose to go into battle with, and which are sometimes spinoffs from what the larger family was. Like our coat of arms has 6 Bs on it because we're Beesons, but our knights had variations of that coat of arms, but they were more personal to the knight in battle when he would have his own shield and his coat of arms. Hey, Cruz. Okay, let me see if I can. I forgot where I lost everybody. I was trying to zero in just for my own goof pitity where this was. Okay, I'm sharing the screen again. I don't know where I lost everyone, but this is roughly like, I'm just going to put it in the center of the screen. How close they are to downtown Houston. I mean the skyline. Look how close they are. Here's the skyline of downtown Houston. So we're talking north. That seems to be a real big hotspot for whoever is dumping these bodies. And then I think that's Taylor Street. I'm not going to swear to it. Going ground stuff is just the water in the Bayou City. Obviously, we know for that. So White Oak Bayou Tin Loop going around White Oak, and then Buffalo Bayou runs through like the south side of I-10 near University of Houston downtown. On both sides of freeway now. They've been expanding, but they'll buy all the real estate around it because it's got. But you can see how close. I mean, we're talking about like right here, close in. If it is a single guy, and I believe it is, that's where these bodies are getting dumped. But I mean, when a guy like Tony Busby goes out on the record and kind of shines that way, I'm in pretty good company, in my opinion, on a theory of it not being a shoot. Every time I put a new password in, I forget it. On it being a multitude of people are homeless. I mean, to come out and blame it on the homeless is just just intellectually dishonest on the part of the mayor, in my opinion. I mean, yeah, the homeless are worse because of you. But I don't think this is the homeless throwing each other into the water. I mean, I could see you maybe drowning if you were just totally fentanyled out, but what's drawing you to the water? I see what happened to Riley Strain, and I was definitely open to something more nefarious going on with Riley Strain's death, but it did become apparent pretty soon thereafter that Riley just got extremely drunk, got extremely disoriented, got thrown out of that bar in Nashville, and found his way to the water and drowned. That's really how it looks. I don't see any conspiracy going on with Riley after all the facts kind of came in, and it didn't look that way. And I never went all in on Riley, but it looked a little weird at first because he got kicked out. Of course, his friends weren't looking after him. I think that's a good case of your buddies needing to watch out for you, especially if you get thrown out of a bar. If you get thrown out of a bar, you're probably pretty intoxicated because people go there and get drunk all the time. So you're doing something a little above what's making the people that work there feel uncomfortable to get actually thrown out of the bar. Of course, Riley was 6'5", 6'6". He's fairly intimidating just for his height. He was skinny, but he was very tall. Gets thrown out, and of course his buddies want to stay for another round or two while their friend gets tossed, which is kind of stupid. Sometimes arms will be called canting arms. That's interesting. I never heard that term, Anthony, which meant the designs were based on the names such as bees on arms for a person's name. Beeson, yes, ours was, and then in ancient times we had a T in our name, which was mostly silent. There's a Beeson Castle that has a T that really wasn't our castle, but one of our brood eventually bought the castle after the English crown determined that they no longer needed it. It was built for the Earl Ranulph, and it was still called. Still, the ruins are still there. It's called Beeson Castle in Cheshire. I always say that right now. I always get it right. Chess, like the game of chess. Ear, like your ear. Cheshire, where my people are from. We originally come out of Stoke on a place called Stoke-on-Trent, and then into Cheshire, Bunbury, England. You had, you're in Porter. I know where that is. We had 2 bodies that were found near your neighborhood in Porter, Texas. I know exactly where Porter is. They were half buried and believed to be illegal immigrants, but never got any follow-up on it. That's interesting. I'll look into that since I'm not crazy far from there and go near Porter quite a bit. I'll definitely check that out. 10 miles from where you live. Okay. I'm just trying to get the slides back. What is the count? I think it's 20. Hold on. I think the count. Even my sister's keeping me up to date, which is cool. She's been following it pretty close. Fortunately, she lives a little further out. Thank God. And I do too, for that matter. But she agrees with me. She's like, this isn't a single guy. There is way, way too many bodies showing up. That's what happens when you have multiple social media and text. I think she texted it. I was looking at our Instagram feed, but she must have texted it to me. She texted about the yogurt shop murders, which we already covered. I think it's 23. Here's something she sent me, and I didn't even see this. I want to read this. This is interesting. This is from My San Antonio online. Of course, we're about 3 hours from San Antonio, 2.5, 3 hours, depending where you are. But it gets into the Lady Bird Lake murders, and there has been thrown out there a possibility of this being the same person, just moving from Austin, Texas, down to Houston, which wouldn't be that hard of a thing to do. That's what reminded me of that movie Time After Time with Malcolm McDowell. I like so much, of Jack the Ripper coming into modern times and continuing his killing spree. But this says how a string of deaths had Austin believing it had a serial killer. So this is, I think, the one in Austin, they tried to push away from that being a serial killer 3 years ago. So that gives you a timeline. This was written in April 29th of this year. So a little over 3 years ago, when these bodies were being dumped in Lady Bird Lake in Austin. It was a little over 3 years. This summer will mark 3 years since the first of a string of bodies turned up in Lady Bird Lake, sparking the rumor of an Austin serial killer. In 2022, 6 bodies were found in the murky waters of the lake. Rachel Lopez, Ricky Parks, some I guess of the writers. To be clear, Lady Bird Lake has seen bodies in the water since its earliest days, back when it was called Town Lake, and likely before, when it was simply called the Colorado River. However, in 2022, this cluster of bodies all shared some striking similarities, all males with darker features. Well, we're already different there because we got females in this case and males. So there's already a departure there from the Austin stuff. Even though Jose Moreno's death was caused by a gunshot wound, that already separates this case, because not from what I know, not one body has been taken out of the water in Houston that had a visible gunshot wound at all. The rumor of a serial killer slowly started to gain traction because of the similarities between the men. And in 2023, when 5 more similar bodies were pulled from the water, Austin collectively birthed the Rainy Street Ripper. That's the first time I honestly even heard that title, the Rainy Street Ripper. The moniker was given because these 5 men, Jason, John, Clifton, Axtell, Jonathan, Christopher Hayes, Clark, and Moga Dogale, that's a weird name, Moggadogale, so maybe from Nigerian descent, maybe, were all said to have disappeared from their groups late at night on Rainy Street. In all cases, police ruled these deaths accidental drownings, except for accidents, which was ruled unknown. And they have a spreadsheet. It's interesting. There is no evidence support that these deaths are suspicious in any way, says Sergeant Nathan Sexton with, I wonder if he's related to Charlie Sexton, with APD homicide. You know, I've always got music on the mind. The vast majority of the cases either involved someone suffering from mental illness, substance abuse, or a medical issue. Well, God knows we have plenty of that in Houston, but I still think it's a singular guy. But for many Austinites, APD's story wasn't adding up. In February 2023, an Arkansas woman named Carissa Morgan caught wind of these deaths and created a Facebook group, the Lady Bird Lake Serial Killer. Maybe I'll create a Facebook group for Bayou City Butcher. In fact, I'm going to do that. So you guys can be the first to join. Anthony, I will send you an invite. This group was made just 1 week after the death of Jason John. Through Morgan's exact motive behind creating it remains a mystery. Morgan declined to comment to my essay. Early posts in the group, however, show an Austin hungry for answers, scared and impatient with, if not outright suspicious of police. That's where we are in Houston, folks. Since its creation, this group has amassed nearly 92,000 members from all over the world. TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube content creators joined the fray, an increasingly angry mob demanding answers. The reason so many seem ready to cry serial killer is this. There really was a slight uptick in bodies found in the lake during the time. This is more than a slight uptick in Houston. Sorry. If you call this a slight uptick, you're out of your blinking mind. This is way more than that. Even if it doesn't turn out to be a serial killer, everybody's justified leaning that way, in my opinion. Slight uptick in bodies found in the lake during this time. Most of them were male, and some of them were last seen on Rainy Street. And without the answers they wanted from APD, the theory only grew. Yeah, the more that's true. The more that law enforcement doesn't give us information, the more we're going to speculate. It's just natural. It's important to look at the timing here. By 2023, the nation had already been through the George Floyd protest. In Austin alone, police misconduct was widely reported, and according to a Gallup poll, nationwide trust in police was at a record low during this time. Well, I think most of that's died down by now for just your normal PD. Simply put, Austinites and beyond weren't buying the accidental drowning reports. APD is just a very strange organization to me, says former Austinite Colin Browen. He started a change.org petition in 2024, pretty recent, asking APD to acknowledge that the Austin drownings may not be accidents. So many investigations have been completely botched. Bowen continues, naming the infamous yogurt shop murders in the 90s as a prime example. Of course, we finally got an answer on the yogurt shop murders and who it was, just this dirtbag, but the DNA eventually did reveal the yogurt shop killer. I think there have been enough instances. I hate that this thing clicked on me. Sorry. I think there have been enough instances in high-profile cases where the police, quite frankly, have screwed up. That makes people very suspicious already, says UT professor Kate Windsor Dawson, a crime historian, podcaster, and author. Maybe we'll have her on. Some people think police are lazy. This keeps clicking. I think it's a conspiracy for me not to unveil the killer. These ads keep popping up. She does admit that the number of bodies found in the river in recent years does seem startling, but she chalks it up to men being more likely to wander off from their group after a few drinks. That's what happened to Riley Strain. I mean, it's obvious. But there's been some females in this. After that, she says it's how accidents can happen. That's why they need to read at least more. If all these people that they're finding in Houston are homeless, then okay, we're willing to maybe think they were on fentanyl or methamphetamine and just lost their faculties and wandered off near the water and couldn't swim. But there's too many people finding these stories intriguing and love to solve a puzzle. She says, well, duh. I wish a lot of them would just stick to Sudoku. Don't write us off. That's ridiculous. Dimitri Hobbs, a PIO with APD from the years 2005 to 2024, also believes this whole strings of deaths was just drunk guys walking straight into the water. Oh, yeah, I'm drunk. Where's the water? I mean, it's just stupid. Though he does allow that the whole thing is weird. Yeah. Why so many in the same place? Who knows? Who knows? He muses. It is a mystery. The detectives are the ones who know the most. Serial killer, groups of killers, or simply drunk guys walking straight into the water, whatever the cause, this string of drownings does seem to be over for now. And it did eventually stop at Lady Bird. The last body recovered from the lake certainly did not fit the profile people have latched onto. Well, they might not, they don't look at Zodiac. I mean, he had male, female, and then, he's starting in couples and then switches to Paul Stein, a single male. People, they can switch their MOs. And for the better part of a year, the Ladybird Lake serial killer Facebook group has remained silent, and so has APD. It doesn't seem to be happening anymore, Hobbs says. But as you know, that's how serial killers work. Maybe this was the Ladybird Lake guy, and he's down here now. Who knows? They'll go for a while. They'll quit for a while. They'll go for a while. They'll quit for a while. So I'm opening the door to you, he laughs. Yeah, look at Golden State. Everybody just assumed when those murders just stopped. When the Golden State killer, of course, Joe D'Angelo, just stopped. And we know now, since he's been caught by DNA with the help of Paul Holes, that he wasn't in prison. He was working the whole time, and he was just the a-hole neighbor, get the hell out of my yard guy, right? So who knows? But D'Angelo just stopped killing. It's just one of those things. So that whole thing goes out the window with a guy like him. It's just insane. But is this the Ladybird Lake person? Who knows? But this is more than just dudes on fentanyl or drunk guys heading into it. Because that part that I was zeroing in on when I had the map up, and I think I took it down. I'm going to add that again right here. Let me go back. Okay. This is really not where you're going to be if you're just drunk. Okay. If you're just drunk in Houston, even if you went downtown, I don't think you're going to, this is a good walk along major freeways, major bars right there. I'm telling you, right out of, and go finding the water. And you're not going to park. Where are you going to park? You're going to park it on Taylor Street and just got hammered and walked right into the water. That's absurd. And all these places, they are not where, even where Riley was, I could see a guy going into the water there, although I don't know Nashville that well. These are not bars here. There's some bars in downtown Houston, of course. There's some bars, kind of scattered throughout they go just because you're hammered and you want to go find the water and maybe you'll find a turtle in there. I mean, it's absurd. This isn't drunk guys going in the water. I'm going to say that right now. Not drunk dudes just going into the water. It's just ludicrous. Somebody is drowning these people and killing them, and just to see if they can get away with it, in my opinion. Could be a copycat. Yeah, I remember the Killing Fields. I was thinking about that movie the other day. Of course, Killing Fields is near Bakersfield. Targeting homeless, mentally ill instead. Could be. But the Killing Fields movie was around Bakersfield, California. I'm sure of that. Is that true? A lot of the coat of arms worn in battle, but were used for dressage. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, maybe they didn't have it on their shield, but it was just formerly getting dressed up for the occasion. My ancestor commanded a boat called during the Spanish Armada, and during the Spanish War, called the Dreadnought. He commanded a ship called the Dreadnought, and he was knighted aboard called the Ark. That I know. He was knighted aboard the Ark at 87 years old. He was knighted on the Ark. Lived to 101. Guy was a total badass. Fighting at that age. I mean, no, obviously not. No, all serial killers do not. Did they ever prove he knew about DNA? I believe that's probably true. I don't know if I ever read that specifically, but I do know this is that obviously GSK was a rapist, and he's leaving behind real tangible DNA, unlike Zodiac. but even at that, it was a fluke that they got good DNA from D'Angelo that was preserved from a rape, but it was still a bit of a long shot. And I think that's what Holes got involved with and was able to preserve that specimen, if you will, from D'Angelo. And then they, of course, did the whole trash can thing where they went by D'Angelo's house and got a coffee cup out of it. Same with the McCurley that killed Carla Tucker and no, Walker. Sorry, Carla Walker. I hate getting victims' names wrong, even though I'm getting old. Carla Walker, similar. They did the way that the Middlemans with Othram caught her killer, but they did get a DNA sample out of GSK's garbage that matched the sample they had. That's when they knew they had their guy. When that matched up, but you're right. I think he definitely knew about law enforcement because he was a cop for a long time. Not at the time of his capture. He was already retired, I think, but for the longest period, he worked at a warehouse doing something, so he was only a cop for like maybe 4 years. I'm not a GSK expert, but maybe not that long, but it seemed like he definitely had a lot of early knowledge of forensics. And I think he really thought he was invincible because of it, from his police training and fingerprints. And famously, they were at that town hall meeting or something about what he later gets named the Golden State Killer after Michelle McNamara's book, Gone After Dark. But before that, he was called a million different things. He had all kind of names. East Area Rapist was the most common name for him back then. I think it was the East Area Rapist. And he was at some town hall meeting. I don't know if it was where it was, Sacramento or whatever, Fresno. I don't know, somewhere up there. But the guy stood up and said, "Man, if this piece of crap comes near my house, I'm going to shoot his ass." Or, you made some comment like that. And D'Angelo was there at the meeting and tracked the guy down who popped his mouth off and wound up raping his wife in front of him, killing them both or something. I mean, real piece of dirt. But this guy was definitely just the ultimate in serial killing machine and mind warped. He's still alive on death row, right? I mean, it's amazing. He's just such a piece of dirt. It was called the Texas Killing Fields. I've never heard that term. I'm from Texas. You're thinking, I think we call it it's also called the I-45 corridor killings or something. The Texas Killing Fields are down in, what's that place? Further south where the killing fields were. And now I know what you're talking about. Yes, that was in League City. I think the League City area, and League City is obviously on both sides of 45, if you know League City. Which is south on 45 going towards Galveston, Texas. I think that's what you're talking about. I think that's where the Texas Killing Fields were you're right, between Galveston and Houston. I think it was near League City. That's a crazy case. I think a lady wrote a book about it. I might have to have her on. It was on Netflix. Yeah. That, and sometimes I think they used to call it the I-45 killer for many years before they finally branded it the Texas Killing Fields, which was interesting. But there is a movie called The Killing Fields, and that one was about that area near Bakersfield, California. But yeah, I know what you're talking about now. There was a big killing ground, and they found a lot of missing girls there. I think it was basically in League City. The dresses refers to riding horses. Yeah, I could see that. Remember, they used to dress the horses up. I guess they were doing like jousting. I don't know. Let me pull this up now. I'm never thinking about it. Just since I like to keep my mind active, which God knows it needs it. Let's see. The city is taking over my computer. I can't. Let me see if this will. Trying to blow up a picture. Come on, let me do it. I don't want to. No, view image. Yes, I'm going to view image. Oh, come on. I can't even zoom in on this. I want to zoom in. Copy image link. No, that image is not what I want because it won't let me zoom. Here's a better one. It's still visual search. Why is it going to Facebook? Okay, at least this one I can kind of, this is on somebody's freaking Facebook. Let me try to do this. Okay. Where is... I was trying to zoom in on that. This is my ancestor's personal coat of arms near his effigy. I was trying to blow it up because he has bees on it, and this is all about him, which is great. Great story. And being knighted. But he has all the, that's the church, I think, where he is. I have more than one knight at that church. I was trying to see if I had a close-up of his personal coat of arms, but it has the bees. That's his effigy here at St. Bunbury's Church. St. Bunbury Boniface, Cheshire, Bunbury, England. But yeah, who knows? It could, maybe it is, maybe it's the Austin guy, but I don't think so. Yes, I'm a direct descendant of him. I'm a direct descendant of that knight. And his son was a knight, Hugh Beeson, and mostly the T was silent, but there was a T in the name back then, and his name was Hugh. And he was named after his grandfather on his mother's side, Sir Hugh de Cavally, who is a very famous English knight, who's buried in the same church. And he's, kind of in a different layout than Sir George, but Cavally was there. And then obviously my name was originally Bunbury, of course, when a Bunbury married a Beeson, Marjorie Beeson, because she had landed title. And there's a page all about the ancestral line called Turtle Bunbury. And when the name Beeson comes into play, and it comes from a woman back in 1347, going way back, and the man took the woman's name because she had the land and the title, and that's how my name is what it is today, and not Bunbury. Let me see if I can find Sir Hugh, but that's where George's son was named Hugh after his grandfather, and he was also an English knight, full armor, coat of arms. There's a picture of Hugh right there, which is a great shot of him. That's what he looked like. That's a statue of Sir Hugh. I mean, not Beeson, but Cavally, which was his grandfather. Let me see if I can get that image up. Oh, that's a great picture. Oh my gosh, that's a great picture. I don't know if that's showing or not, but I wish it would, or that's him on the right. In the middle, that's a statue of him on his horse. I was trying to blow that up. But that's his coat of arms there for Sir Hugh. And that was my ancestor's father-in-law. And then he names his son after him. That's George. There it is. I don't know if that comes through on my screen. It's showing the whole thing. That's Sir Hugh de Cavally on his horse with all his gear on. I can blow it up a little bit. And then he's got that his helmet there. It looks like the jousting helmet. And the horse. God, I love that. I wish I had that. I wish I had that in my backyard. That would be cool. Even though he's related by marriage. Would love to have that. Sir Hugh de Cavalry's big time English knight. Born and raised in this area. Yeah, there's a lady that wrote a book. Of course, the most famous serial killer ever from Houston. The Houston area was, of course, the Candyman, Dean Corll. Killed all those little boys in the Heights around what, 72, 75, and he was burying them in like a boat storage or something in this red dirt. He was burying the bodies of these little boys that I mean, they weren't little boys. They were younger men, 12, 13, 14-ish, from the neighborhood that he would entice with drugs and alcohol. They called him the Candy Man because his parents used to own a candy store. I guess the candy store was in the Heights too. And I've even been by that. Some of the houses that this happened in are still there in the Heights, because the Heights is all gentrified now. Some of the houses were torn down, redone, and, very expensive land right now. But some of the houses were just remodeled and are still there to this day. But he had a lot. I mean, Dean Corll had a high kill count, and he's not really ever talked about too much. And then he had two kind of older boys that were helping him lure the younger boys to him, in Houston. One of them died in prison, I think recently. Dean Corll, December 24th, 1939, August 8th, 1973. He dies in Pasadena, Texas, when someone brought a woman to him, and they was like, why is that woman here? I don't want any women around me. He died at age 33 in Pasadena, like I mentioned, but the crimes happened. Elmer Wayne Hensley's the guy I'm thinking about that helped him, but he was younger at the time. 70 to 73, I was close. Heights, one victim was buried on a beach in Jefferson County. At least 6 victims were buried on a beach on the Bolivar Peninsula. I didn't even know that. It's funny. Go to Wikipedia, learn more. Didn't already know about this guy. But he's the most famous serial killer from Houston. Brooks and Hensley confessed to assisting Corll in several abductions and murders. Both were sentenced to life imprisonment. Corll was known as the Candy Man and the Pied Piper because he and his family had previously owned and operated a candy factory in the Houston Heights. This isn't far from where they found the body in the water. And he had been known to give free candy to local children. He's Houston's legacy of serial killers. And he'd be the one. The railroad killer. The railroad killer. I can't remember his name, but he turned himself in. You do that. Railroad killer turned himself in. Of course, he wasn't from Mexico, but some other. Some South American company, Guatemala, something like that. He had killed in other states other than Houston. He had attacked a lady in West University, and he was traveling by rail car. That's why he gets the name Railroad Killer. And they had pretty much, I think they were kind of closing in on him, but he winds up turning himself in. To the best of my memory, he turns himself in for the crimes. He buried them in his garage. He had a garage, like a boat storage or something. Corll did, where he was burying these guys. But yeah, and a lot of people don't know much about Dean Corll. Surprised they haven't done something more on him. He was one sick bastard. I mean, he eventually gets killed by one of the guys that was helping him, because one of the 2 guys that were assisting him, I don't know if it was Hensley, brings a female to this party they're at in Pasadena, Texas, not in the Heights now, but not real far, but brings a female. And the guy was like, and Corll was like, what did you bring her here for? It screws up everything, and he just lost his mind. And I guess the one guy kind of liked the girl, Hensley or the other guy, and winds up shooting Corll. I mean, like point blank in the head. And it was like a 22, so it takes him a while to die. I don't remember all the details, but that's how Corll dies. One of his own, Confederates kill him. Texas Rangers went down there and negotiated a surrender. Yeah, at the border. You're right. I watched a documentary on a lady that was a victim of his that lived. I think she was sexually assaulted, but lived and was able to ID him. And she was up, like, I almost want to say Ohio, but it wasn't in Texas. I do remember him attacking and I believe killed the lady in West University. I'm sure you know where that is if you're from this area too. Candyman in the garage. Man, Dean Corll is just a bag of garbage. Total bag of garbage. But for Houston, yeah, I mean, he was just a special kind of dirtbag. Hey, Brian. Yeah, law enforcement states they do not have a serial killer. On the other hand, who wants to admit that? True, but either way, it looks bad. If it's homeless, it's bad. I mean, why is there so many homeless that they're haphazardly walking into the water and dying? I mean, Come on. That's bad too. Yeah, I think GSK was just shocked when he got caught. I mean, famously, when they caught GSK, better known as Joe D'Angelo, he had a roast in the oven, and they were arresting him. They already knew it was him, and they were positive, and of course they were, and he knew he was going down, and he couldn't believe it. He just shocked, that they caught him because he thought he was so damn smart. And he had a roast in the oven, and he asked the cops, could he go take the roast out of the oven? That's a true story. And they said, hell no, you're going to jail. The dumbass asked if he could get the roast out of the oven. That's how shocked, that's how his brain was working at the time. I get it that I'm going down for raping and killing multiple people in California, but can I get the roast out? Please? Can I get the roast out of the oven? What a freaking dirtbag. Man, just garbage. Complete and total garbage. But you're right about the DNA. It was really, even a case of a rapist like that. It was still a fluke that they were able to get the good DNA match on D'Angelo. So that shows you what a long shot the Zodiac would be, who didn't sexually assault anybody, not to our knowledge, definitely not in the canonicals. He never tried to sexually assault Cecilia Shepard or Dee or Betty. So good luck. I mean, what, you got the bindings in Zodiac, the physical, there is no physical evidence in Zodiac. Sorry. You have some latent fingerprints from Stein's cab and some from the Napa phone booth. That's all you got. You don't have any damn DNA. You got the bindings from Berryessa that have been handled barehanded by every cop there ever was. You have the letters in the case that have been barehanded by every cop that ever lived in San Francisco in the 70s, took them home to their families to pass around the table. Look, Sonny, the Zodiac wrote this, and they were real. And, particularly with the San Francisco letters were just bastardized. Even Vallejo PD, they probably don't care for me, but they even let somebody that they shouldn't have, claiming to be media, come in and barehand their letters. Great job, Vallejo, idiots. So good luck with that. The best they talk about, the lay people that don't know the Zodiac killer case go, well, it'll be solved with DNA. They don't know their head from their ass. The only decent DNA sample comes from the 78 letter, which, shocker, probably wasn't written by the real Zodiac. Okay. They don't have any good physical evidence in the Zodiac case. Anybody that thinks so doesn't know the case. I had lunch with Colleen Fitzpatrick, who solved the Somerton man. I know Anthony brings that up. I'm sure you know who Colleen Fitzpatrick is. I had lunch with her, and we were talking about Zodiac, and I mentioned the DNA. She goes, oh, you know the case. I'm like, yeah. But I had lunch with Colleen Fitzpatrick, and we got to dive into that a little bit, which was a neat deal that I got to have lunch with somebody really well known in genetic genealogy, like Colleen Fitzpatrick, who co-solved the Somerton man case. I remember Anthony bringing that case up a lot with Cooper, but obviously, as you know, I think Cooper survived. We might differ there, brother. I think he made it. I think he made it with a little help from his friends called the CIA. That's why a particular hot suspect never turns up in their little 302 files, because they're protecting him. That's why he doesn't come up. They don't want him to be talked about. So, yeah, that's it. So I'll keep everybody up to date on what's going on. But that's my bet for this week. Keep your eye on the news. And if it comes out, check out the regular feed for this channel. If there's a new development in the case, or, of course, another body showing up, we will know. I think the chances are high. I think this guy's red hot. I think he knows that he's being looked for. This isn't some one-off. This is a single guy. I'm going all in. Going all in, man. Putting the reputation on the line. Bayou City Butcher. I think I lost my entire feed, so sorry. I can't find it. And I lost my slides too. Sorry, Patty, but we'll make Corky make an appearance to make up for that. And the scream. And for Patty, we'll do a Bigfoot yell because I can't get my slides back up. But we'll do a groan for next week. But yeah, keep an eye on the news. I think there's going to be another body found this week. Everybody have a good week. Thanks. Bye.